Acquiring their own cottage was meant to be the beginning of a new, joyful chapter. However, the housewarming party took an unexpected turn. The in-laws arrived not just with gifts, but with a whole truckload of belongings. These are our son's premises, joint property after all. So, we'll all live together now, and we'll give Lenka our apartment. The mother-in-law chirped happily, already envisioning herself as the rightful owner. Welcome, dear listeners. I'm delighted to greet you on my channel. I present a new and captivating story. Enjoy listening. Alla Sergeyevna gazed at the truck parked by the brand new cottage and felt a storm brewing within. 3 months prior, she had inherited a sum from her Aunt Nina, the only relative who had always supported her. Her aunt had bequeathed her a 3-bedroom apartment in the city center, which Alla promptly sold. The proceeds were sufficient to purchase this suburban cottage. It was a charming 2-story house with an attic, a small garden, and a garage. She had the property registered solely in her name. Her husband, Kirill, hadn't shown much interest in the specifics, and she hadn't bothered to involve him. Why would she? It was an inheritance, personal property after all. Alla worked as the chief accountant for a construction company, earning a substantial salary of approximately $150,000. She was adept at saving and planning. Over their 10 years of marriage, she had learned to rely solely on herself. Kirill was a manager at a car dealership, earning around $80,000, but half of that went to his parents, sometimes for his mother Olga Viktorovna's medications, other times for his father Viktor Stepanovich's car, or for his sister Lena's recurrent needs. Alla remained silent, endured, and accumulated grievances alongside savings in her account. When she announced her purchase of the house, Kirill rejoiced like a child. He immediately called his parents, enthusiastically describing the wonderful cottage, its numerous rooms, and the picturesque view. Alla observed the spark in his eyes and understood he had something brewing, but she remained quiet, waiting. And now it was housewarming day. She had prepared a feast and invited parents from both sides, along with several friends. Everything was proceeding splendidly until a truck rumbled into the yard. Viktor Stepanovich was at the wheel, with Olga Viktorovna beside him, and the truck bed was laden with boxes, bags, and old furniture. Alla stepped onto the porch. Her father-in-law was already beginning to unload the items, while her mother-in-law, in her signature floral dress and with a beaming smile, approached her. Alla, my dear, we decided to surprise you. Olga Viktorovna embraced her daughter-in-law as if they were best friends, despite having addressed her as this wife of yours for the past 10 years. We're moving in with you. This is our son's house, too. Joint property, after all. We'll give Lenka our apartment. Kirill stood nearby, smiling inanely. Alla looked at him, then at her mother-in-law, then at the truck and its contents, and burst into laughter. She laughed heartily, genuinely, from the depths of her soul, tears welling in her eyes. Olga Viktorovna appeared flustered. What are you so happy about, darling? I'm celebrating your audacity, Olga Viktorovna, Alla replied, wiping away her tears. It seems it's time to deliver some unpleasant news. This house is mine, and mine alone. I purchased it with funds from an inheritance I received from my aunt. Kirill has absolutely no connection to this acquisition. Only my name is on the documents. A heavy silence descended. Even the guests who had emerged to observe the commotion fell quiet. Viktor Stepanovich froze, a box in his hands. Olga Viktorovna's mouth opened, but no words came out. Kirill was the first to recover. Alla, what are you saying? Everything in a marriage is shared. Inherited property is personal property, Alla stated calmly. Read the family code, Article 36. Property received by one spouse as a gift or inheritance is their personal property. I sold my aunt's apartment and bought this house with my own money, in my own name. You've completely lost your mind. Olga Viktorovna's face flushed crimson. This is a family home. Are you trying to kick us out? I did not invite you to move in, Alla stated, crossing her arms over her chest. You arrived unannounced with a truck without even asking, and you intended to give your apartment to Lena? What an interesting distribution of assets, wouldn't you agree? A new and spacious one for yourselves, an old and familiar one for your daughter, and joint living with us for us. Kirill, shrieked the mother-in-law, do you hear what she's saying? Kirill turned pale. He clearly hadn't anticipated this turn of events. He approached his wife and tried to take her hand, but Allah pulled away. "We'll discuss this at home," he hissed. "At home." Allah met his gaze. "In my home, you want to discuss it? Fine, but your parents will not be living here." Viktor Stepanovich placed the box back into the truck. He was a quiet man, accustomed to his wife making all the decisions, but even he understood the gravity of the situation. "Perhaps, Olya, we shouldn't have started this," he muttered. "Shut up!" his wife snapped at him. "Allah, surely you understand. I meant no harm. I just thought there would be more space in a larger home, and we'll help you with household chores, with grandchildren when they arrive." "There will be no grandchildren," Allah cut her off. "At least not from Kirill. I filed for divorce a week ago." It was like a bomb had exploded. Kirill grew even paler. "What did you say?" "I'm tired, Kirill. I'm tired of supporting not only you, but your entire family. And I'm tired of you rushing off with money every time your mother calls. I'm tired of Lena considering it acceptable to borrow from us and never repay. For 10 years, I was convenient. No more." Olga Viktorovna clutched her chest. "Oh, I feel faint. Is there a doctor here?" Allah gestured to one of the guests. "Igor Valerievich, would you please check on my mother-in-law?" The doctor, an elderly gentleman with kind eyes, approached and felt her pulse. "Everything is fine, Olga Viktorovna. Your blood pressure is normal. No need to feign illness." The mother-in-law visibly deflated. Viktor Stepanovich was already getting into the truck's cabin. Kirill was torn between his wife and his mother, unsure of what to do. "Allah, please, let's talk rationally," he pleaded. "I truly didn't know they were planning to move in. Honestly, I didn't." Allah shook her head. "Your eyes lit up when I mentioned the house. You called them immediately and described everything. Do you think I didn't hear you talking to your mother? Now there will be enough room for everyone. You planned this from the very beginning." Kirill lowered his gaze. Arguing was futile. The guests gradually dispersed. The housewarming was a complete failure. Olga Viktorovna and Viktor Stepanovich departed in their truck, having unloaded nothing. Kirill remained, sitting at the kitchen table, drinking vodka straight from the bottle. "Did you really file for divorce?" he asked when Allah entered to collect the dishes. "Yes, because of the money, because of the disrespect." Allah sat down opposite him. "You never asked what I wanted. You just did what was convenient for you and your parents. I was a source of funds and free labor. Cook, wash, clean, and support everyone. I didn't think it was so hard for you. You never thought at all." Kirill left for his parents that same night. Allah remained alone in her new home. It was quiet, peaceful, and incredibly liberating. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Kirill attempted to claim a share of the house, hiring a lawyer, but the lawyer quickly explained that inherited property was not subject to division. Allah didn't even smile when Kirill exited the courtroom with a crestfallen expression. She was indifferent. Olga Viktorovna called several times, trying to evoke pity, claiming Kirill was suffering and that she, as a mother, couldn't sleep at night. Allah listened in silence, then simply blocked the number. Lena, Kirill's younger sister, got married and indeed moved into her parents' apartment. However, 6 months later, her husband Gennady couldn't tolerate the constant presence of his in-laws and filed for divorce. Lena was left with 2 children, jobless, in an apartment with her parents. Olga Viktorovna complained to anyone who would listen, but no one could help. A year later, Kirill married a colleague, a young saleswoman who was terrible with money and adored his mother. Olga Viktorovna was ecstatic. Allah learned of this accidentally through social media and merely shrugged. 2 years later, a new man moved into Allah's house. Igor Valerievich, the very same doctor who had exposed her mother-in-law at the housewarming. He was a widower, calm and intelligent. He didn't demand or pressure. He was simply present. They married quietly, without grand celebrations. Allah wore a simple white dress, he a suit. They registered their marriage and had dinner at a restaurant for 2. "Are you happy?" Igor asked when they returned home. "Yes," Allah replied. It was the truth. A year later, they welcomed a daughter, little Lena, named in honor of the aunt who had given Allah a chance at a new life. Igor was a wonderful father, rising at night, changing diapers, singing lullabies. Allah looked at him, unable to believe such happiness existed. One day, while walking with their stroller in the park, she encountered Kirill. He looked aged and gaunt, fatigue evident in his eyes. His young wife, visibly pregnant, walked beside him with Olga Viktorovna behind them, chattering loudly. "Hello?" Kirill said. "Hello?" Alla responded. He looked into the stroller, saw the sleeping Nina. "She's beautiful," he murmured. "Thank you." They stood in awkward silence. Olga Viktorovna noticed Alla, pursed her lips, and demonstratively turned away. Kirill's wife glanced over with curiosity. "Well, goodbye," Kirill said and continued on. Alla watched them go. There was no anger, no resentment, only a faint regret for the wasted years, for not having acted sooner. When Nina turned 3, Alla opened her own accounting agency. Igor supported her, assisting with financing. The business took off. Clients appeared one after another, recommending her to friends. Within 2 years, she managed a staff of 5 employees and was considering expansion. The house, which was meant to be the curse of cohabitation with her mother-in-law, had transformed into their family nest. Alla cultivated a flower garden. Igor built a playground for the children. Nina grew up a happy child, surrounded by love. One evening, as they sat on the veranda sipping tea, Alla said, "You know, I'm grateful for that situation with the truck and the housewarming." "Why?" Igor asked, surprised. "Because it was the last straw. I would have tolerated it much longer, accumulating resentment, destroying myself. This way, it happened quickly and decisively. They themselves burst the abscess." Igor smiled and kissed her temple. "It's good that you laughed then, instead of crying." "Tears would have been a sign of weakness." Alla shook her head. "And I was tired of being weak." She saw Kirill a few more times from a distance. He continued to live with his parents. His wife gave birth to 2 children and quickly became a worn-out housewife. Olga Viktorovna still commanded everyone. Viktor Stepanovich remained silent. Lena never managed to establish a personal life. She worked as a saleswoman. Her children grew up under their grandmother's supervision. Alla felt no schadenfreude. She was simply indifferent. Her life had taken a different path, a bright, peaceful one, filled with meaning. When Nina turned 5, the family relocated to another city. Igor was offered the position of head of a department at a major clinic. Alla seamlessly transitioned her business to an online platform. The house sold quickly and profitably. The new owners were a young couple without relatives, dreaming of children. "May happiness be with you in this house," Alla said, handing over the keys. "Thank you," the young woman smiled. "And did it bring you happiness?" "It did," Alla nodded. "It taught me to stand up for myself." In the new city, they purchased an apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Nina started attending a good kindergarten. Igor became fully immersed in his work. Alla finally exhaled. Sometimes in the evenings, she would recall that day. The truck, the boxes, her mother-in-law's joyful face, Kirill's smile, and each time she would smile because it was the day of her liberation. 10 years had passed since that housewarming. Alla occasionally checked social media to see what her former acquaintances were up to. Kirill had divorced his second wife and lived alone, still working at the same car repair shop. Olga Viktorovna had died of a stroke. Viktor Stepanovich lived out his days in a nursing home. His children couldn't agree on who would care for him. Lena married for the 3rd time and moved to the countryside. Alla closed the page. Nina was doing her homework at the table. Igor was reading a medical journal. A typical evening for a typical happy family. "Mom, are we going somewhere for the summer?" Nina asked. "Yes, we are. Do you want to go to the sea?" "Yes." "Can I sunbathe and swim with Dad?" "Of course." Alla walked to the window. Beyond it lay the city, its lights. Her life, the life she had chosen herself. And that choice had begun the moment she laughed in her mother-in-law's face and wasn't afraid to speak the truth. Sometimes a minute of courage changes everything. And thank God she found the strength for that minute.